don't put another piece of food in your mouth. You put it all down and you stand up like an adult. And, thank you for closing that. I don't want to disrupt the prayers downstairs. Like I said, though, tonight is a prayer meeting night, so come 8 o'clock. If maybe somebody wait when it's about 5 till, because I'm probably just be plowing on through. So I'm glad you guys made it. You three, I don't know where Casey is. Hopefully her and everybody else is okay. So let's pray to start, and then we're gonna say our verses, more verses, and sing. Lord, I thank you very much for tonight, and that everyone that's here made it safely. And I pray that it'll be a fun night of studying your word, Lord, and thinking about our relationships. Please be with our fellowship with the adults downstairs later, and the church as a whole, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, let's say our verse. Big verse, 1 Timothy 4:12.
Let no one despise your youth, but be an example to believers in words, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. 1 Timothy 4:12.
And then this year's 2 Timothy 3:16.
All scripture is breathed out by God and profitable for teaching, for reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness.
2 Timothy 3:16. All right, this one is one of my more favorite clapping songs, but I'll read the verse first. Psalm 5:1b. But let all those rejoice who put their trust in you. Let them never shout for joy. All right, you guys remember this one? I hope from grade school and yes, and all of that. So we sang. I just sang it with the 3-year-olds on Sunday, so you should know. All right. I don't remember. Do we clap for the verses or just the chorus?
I thought it was the whole song.
All right, let's just do the whole song. That sounds more fun, even though it is higher. I've got the joy, 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 down in my heart. Down in my heart. I've got the joy, 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 down in my heart. Down in my heart to this day. Yeah, I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. Yeah, I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. I've got the blessed belief that God will lead us way down the depths of my heart. Where we got the depths of my heart. Where we got the depths of my heart. I've got the blessed belief that God will lead us way down the depths of my heart. Where we got the depths of my heart to this day. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. Ready? I've got the Christian pushes way down in the depths of my heart. Where we down in the depths of my heart. Where we down in the depths of my heart. I've got the Christian conviction that pushes way down in the depths of my heart. Where we down in the depths of my heart to this day. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. Woo! Good job. Wow. That takes so much energy.
It's a lot.
What's wrong?
This is a slow transition.
Oh, rats. I didn't meant to change it. All right, go ahead and sit down. And this is the one we sang in the at the retreat. There's a couple other places that we've sung, but I think the retreat was the last time. So hopefully you guys remember it. If not, excellent. You know, so. Ryan, were you there with us that week?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, good. I thought so. I just couldn't. All right. Lord, could remember no wrongs we have done. On this all-knowing He counts not their song. Thrown into the sea without bottom or shore. Our sins, they are many. His mercy is more. Praise the Lord. Long breath? Well, sure. All right. Hopefully you guys all got something to drink. I did, but I also talk a lot, so I need it. We'll keep singing that song so everyone's familiar with it. I ran across the song list today, and I'm like, man, I was supposed to teach you guys like 12 new ones by this year, and I think we learned about 2, just because we have so little time to sing. But that's important, because guess what we do instead of sing? We read the Bible. All right, turn to Galatians 5, just like your memorization verse was for today. And I have a new handout that kind of encapsulates everything that we've done this month with friends. Some of you missed a few weeks, and that's okay. But I wrote it all down on one 2-sided paper so that you've got it in your hands and you can take it home, all right? Now, I put back the triangles you filled out last week based on the hexagons, the quadrant that I set out, which is now up here, okay, this color. So, hopefully, who got my text? Brian, I don't text often, but did you at least get the picture I sent you?
I don't.
Okay, great. All right, that was so you guys could think about your friends this week. If you didn't, I forgive you. I actually don't think I sent yours because I didn't realize you actually left it with us. I thought you took it home. What is on the new sheet is the exercise broken up into the 4 weeks that we really did it. I think it wasn't until the second week, but about a month ago, I introduced the triangle to you, and I had you read the back, which is right, the top half was just what friendships are. And we did this pyramid exercise where we did bestie, friend, king, stranger, right? Had you guys put the topics up there. And we haven't touched it since then. We might finish it a little bit tonight because of the topics. That was number 1. And then 2, we did last week. We assigned our friends values. Now that sounds kind of cold and mathematical, but many ways the intentionality of thinking about your friendships matters, okay? It's not an equation, but we do compare them and contrast them to scriptural characteristics like love, patience, goodness, kindness, mercy. And that's an equation, right? One of the greater than symbol, okay? Love should beat out hate every time in your friends. You don't want hateful friends. Not that you would actually ever say that anyway. Okay, so then compare, there's kind of a 2B there with all the verses I listed. And then 3, which is where we're going to park, 3 and 4 is where we're going to park tonight in the last one. For reference, I know it's on your sheet from week 1, but I put the pyramid and the quadrant on the back of this one. So if you lose the other 2, God forbid, but if you lose the other 2, you can still have it. All right, so we're in Galatians 5. Who wants to tell me, let's see, which direction should I go here? Who wants to tell me what that says? I'm going the wrong direction.
Galatians 5.
Ah, it's the wrong direction. 5. You could just quote it to me. You just said it.
But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering.
You're good. You're doing great.
I mean, I just
Gentleness,
gentleness,
says Rachel.
goodness, faith, meekness, or I don't know how to say that.
Faithfulness. Yeah, good. Good job. All right. So we know, I don't think we needed to memorize those for you guys to know what God expects out of us. Did you? You're somewhere between 12 and 18. You've all been raised in Christian homes, including the people that are missing here. Well,
I don't count.
you don't count. I was about to ask your history, but it really doesn't matter. I was raised in a Christian home. All right. Anyway, so we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. I want you to whip out your triangle from last week with the names on it and the cues. I had you guys range them from cue 1 through 4 based on health. Okay? 2 and 3, not so good. 4 is definitely bad. I meant to get red marker or pencil or crayon or whatever because we are going to do a rather painful exercise tonight. Okay? Now, this is what I call your closest friends? Where are all the Q? Oh, I messed that up. That's supposed to be, these are supposed to be Q1s. These are supposed to be Q4s. I'm sorry. Where are all the Q1 red friendships? At the bottom, where there is strain. This doesn't say it on this friendship pyramid, but according to the one on your the back of your sheet, this is where all your strangers are, right? Why? Because you want to keep those people at arm's distance as far as friendship. Now, a whole lot of people said, hold up, what about this responsibility? What about evangelism? Well, we're not talking about evangelism right now, except maybe for friendship evangelism. We're talking about kind of protecting yourself. In many ways, it's like wearing a seatbelt when you're driving, okay? You don't want to be reckless. Yes, eventually you have to get out of the car, but you don't want to be reckless while you're going and doing life. Having immature, let me put it this way, having ungodly friends is being dangerous. I can comfortably say that, and I can defend it to what I think. All right, now this is the optimal friend health based on that quadrant, which is right here. This is what our lives usually look a little bit more like. And again, the 1s and the 4s are still messed up, but look at the colors. The colors matter the most. Okay, is there a red one near the top?
Yeah.
Yes, okay, poor Bob. I wasn't thinking about anybody specifically. I just chose 7 random names. So I'm sorry if you're listening and heard something. Okay, and this isn't, this is more serious than not having a good friend, down at the bottom. Why? Because you've already allowed a possible, very, very likely, actually bad influence close to you. Okay? Now, there's probably way more Marys, Q4s spread out in here, because there's possible good friends out there, right? Just because you don't talk to them yet or you haven't met them yet, doesn't mean they're not out there in your acquaintance field. How many, since all of you are public school, how many people in the 5 and the 1 and 2 range do you think you know? Well, we defined who they are the first week, and it says right here, level 1 and 2. How many? It's more so for public schools because you know more people. For instance, do you have 500 acquaintances? Do you have 300 acquaintances? This would include your doctor, your neighbors. Anybody? Okay. Those are the only 20 people you know.
No, there's more. It's just
Okay, so what? Maybe we know about 100. Could you guys name 100 people by name?
maybe 50.
Okay, that's not bad. Let's say you guys aren't answering me, so I'm assuming that's average. Adults were a little higher because we've lived longer, although we might have worse memories. All right, so there might be better friends out there like Mary who you could push to the top, but who's the biggest problem right now? Bob. Bob is the issue. Okay, now what do we want to do with Bob? We do not want to throw Bob in the trash, okay? His soul still matters to God. But does he belong on level 4 with growing friendships? No, okay? I should have put Jill up here, because he definitely doesn't belong amongst our close friends. But he doesn't belong with our growing friendships either. Why? What does the Q1 mean? Do you remember? The Q4. Oh, I really did get this backwards. Good grief. All right. Fake, boring. This is we don't enjoy them. Feels like a chore. What are they like? They're negative. They don't like you. They're envious of you. They lust. They have all the authority in the relationship. They're rooting against you. Does that sound like somebody you should be growing towards? Not even close. And yet, we still allow them in our lives. Now, I did not look at what you guys labeled Q whatever from last week, but if you're being honest, I would think that you have at least, who has a Q2 or 3 even above level, in or above level 3? Now those are, though, let me rephrase that, because that's, I don't really care. Who has a red above level 2? That's a better way of saying it. Nah, well, maybe we're not dealing with the right dynamic here. Maybe I should be talking to 25 volts. Some of them have a tendency to get bad fans and hang on. All right. Well, what do we want to do with Bob? We want to keep him out of the trash, but put him down farther towards not really even a possible friend. People can change though, right? All right. Let's say Bob is a Christian. Now our responsibilities change a little bit. Instead of avoiding him as a bad example, encouraging them to be a good example suddenly becomes your responsibility. But that doesn't mean you should be besties with Bob. He still belongs down here somewhere. Right? Until you know he's willing to come alongside. Because some people don't change. And some people don't want to change. They don't take their sanctification seriously. Alright, so we have Bob going down, and you should be able to focus on more than one relationship at a time, okay? Pastor Spink, I should have brought it in, that would have been great. He recently sat down and wrote down everything he was to people. Actually, this was years ago. But, and he came up with like 22 different types of relationships. Not even relationships, because it's more like in the hundreds. It was in the like the low 20s. And I think I did the exercise for myself, it's like in the upper teens. Because I'm not a grandparent yet or a great uncle or whatever. And it's a lot of responsibility. So I know you guys can handle more than 2 or more because you're handling like 20 right now. So we can drop Bob and get to know Mary at the same time, right? Why do we want Mary? What quadrant is she from?
The first.
The what?
The healthy one.
The healthy one. What does healthy or godly friends look like? Galatians and 1 Corinthians 13. Loving not all the time, but consistently they have growth in God's word, in righteousness. Alright? So, here's some suggestions. We're going to strategize. Now, I want you guys to take your pens and pick, if you don't have, who doesn't have a pen? Just Johnny? Okay, good. If you don't have one you've labeled red, circle the person that you, on there, that you don't think you should know as well as you do. I don't care what color it is, no, don't circle the green one because that would make no sense. But if for some reason you don't have a Q4, circle the one that you think you should not be hanging out with as much. And we'll talk about Bob. Because that's who Bob is to you. It's that person.
So pretty much, if you don't have a Q4, do one that you think will be.
No. Do the Q4iest person there is on your sheet. The one that is most similar to those qualities. Your most ungodly points or friends.
But not necessarily if we hang out. I don't hang out with these people.
It depends. I didn't read your sheet, so for all I know, you guys do nothing but spend your time with Q4s.
Did you still have a sheet for?
No, it's right
I don't.
there.
I wouldn't know.
Because you missed the week where we actually had a triangle.
Yeah.
And I meant to put an empty triangle on this so the person with the sheet could actually do the exercise. But you could cross off all my fake names and do the exercise if you want. But all right, that being done, let's talk about how to throw friends in the trash. I am never going to forget that phrase. That is a great phrase. How to tactfully, and I put this on your sheet somewhere, I think it's 3B, how to tactfully and lovingly stop spending as much time with them. And I want to underline that. This is not to destroy your friendships. That would be a failure as a Christian. Was Jesus loving?
Yes.
Thank you, Miss Kate.
You're welcome.
Was Jesus friendly? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. I think I agree with you. He is loving. He was friendly. It's not to be an unfriendly person. It's to be a wise and tactful person and obedient in our relationships, okay? So, what do we do about Bob? Or what about Bob? Isn't that a movie? I think that's a movie. All right. Should you, these are just ideas, okay? When we're brainstorming here, and this is the exercise I want you to be able to go through without me in the future when you're trying to think of, is that really a healthy friend? You know, maybe whether a pastor or your parents confront you about a friendship, you should really think through some of these things. Is it healthy? We decided that last week. We defined healthy. This week, if you decide it's not healthy, like Bob, he is a Q4, it's supposed to be a 4. How do I do that? Should I hang out with them less? Is the time I'm spending with them the problem? Is that when they're affecting me the most? Is that when I'm sinning the most around them? Should I be less honest with them? And I don't mean lie, okay? What does this one say? You guys, you boys can't read this. What does this one say? No, this one. Dreams and where did I have it put? I think you guys put it there. But where did it end up? With your best friend, okay? If Bob is Q4 material and shouldn't be your best friend anyway, should you be discussing your innermost thoughts and spiritual struggles with this person? No. Why? Because according to the definition of a Q4, they're going to take advantage of that. They are not going to be Christ-like and come alongside you and say, you know what, you need to be more like God. They're like, oh, hey, you're a kleptomaniac? Okay, let's go steal something together. That's a Q4. Poor Bob. I'm not trying to figure out how to do anything. All right? That's what I mean by be less open. That's just an idea. Is it mostly an electronic relationship? Do you know them from Instagram or texting or, God forbid, Facebook for old people? What do you know them from? Gaming? I have a lot of friends who have friends from gaming systems. Actually, play a game with a friend's friend because he met them online. They've never met in person, but they're really good friends because it's been like 10 years. But is that an electronic relationship? Should you contact them less? Do they text you like 6 times a day? That's kind of a needy person, by the way. You might want to step a little bit away from that anyway. But how do you want to slow this down? I had a girl, I liked her, but that I liked in junior high, and she was allowed to date, and I wasn't. Okay? And that was a hard pill to swallow because I wanted to, or at least wanted to be able to. I think it was more like it. And she called me, this is before cell phones, so before affordable cell phones, she called me all the time. And after about the 4th time, my parents were like, what is going on with you two? I'm like, I don't know, she keeps calling and we enjoy talking. Now, our conversations were really stupid because we were junior hires. But they're like, this is not a time in your life to invest in young women by themselves, okay? Healthy, biblical friendships occur usually in groups or small groups that are supervised. I know you guys hate that word because I did. Or in a godly atmosphere, like your home. Your parents' home should be a safe spiritual place. Church is a safe spiritual place. Pretty much anything outside of that you can't control. Christians can't control, which is why it's so important to have godly peers. Alright, so those are ideas about how to spend less time with Bob. Now, you'll see from the next one that we don't drop Bob down to 1 overnight. I would never suggest that. Okay, that's how you turn somebody off to the gospel. Okay, I've done that to people. Huge mistake. They can't handle it and they're bitter for good reason. You know. All right. Now, what about Mary? If you're going to empty your level 4, it should be full of somebody. What to do to meet people or get them? Ask them to do stuff with you, okay? Again, this situation again with the girl, she asked me out all the time. Now, a lot of it was in groups, but it was very much a would you go with me kind of date. And I always had to say no. But I really wanted to say it. So, just for a friendship, ask them to do things with you, okay? It's traditionally guys like activities more because we don't like to talk as much. And that's not true of all men, but most males it is. And ladies, typically like to do things where you can communicate because they prefer growing the relationship that way. But if you know they like to do something, ask them. The other thing, the reason I did this was because if you have to ask, who does that put the job on? Mary or me? It's a responsibility to grow the relationship. Me, okay? Well, friendships are intentional. Friendships should never occur accidentally, okay? Accidental friendships, okay, I understand meeting someone accidentally, that's totally okay. A lot of people have met some really weird places, okay? Calling them the second, third, fourth, or fifth time, that should never be because it's the kind of friend you want or the kind you prefer. Let's go back to this. Now, as far as preference goes, where do you think we would want to hang out the most? Which quadrant?
Q1.
I disagree with Ryan. Where would we want to hang out the most? Not should.
Q3.
Oh.
I think it's Q3.
I
Yes.
gotcha.
Sorry, I should have emphasized that word earlier. We desire usually the things that are the worst for us. We want to be in Q3. We should be in Q1, right? So when we asked Mary to do stuff, it needs to be intentional. Intentionally grown relationships are healthy. Why? Because you're putting intentional thought into it. What does Satan try to do when you, how do I put this? He usually attacks when we're being lazy, when we're tired, when we don't want to think about a problem, a sin problem, when we're being convicted. Those are the times when Satan gets us and our flesh get at us the most, which means that we need to watch out for it. Friendships are intentional, okay? Find out what her hobby is, or his hobby. This doesn't have to be just for girls if you're trying to find a guy. And is it to the point where you admire their godly characteristics so much you would be okay with adding a hobby or changing one of yours to match theirs? So you guys have something to do together. That's kind of one and two together. Asking them to do a hobby. Join their club. April and I just watched Man of the House the other day with Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Has ever seen that movie from the 90s? Okay, it's really silly. But it's about this kid who's trying to get a bit of his stepdad, so he joins this club from school called the Indian something. It's funny. It's got some situational humor. And okay, they join their club, and this club is really interesting, but not politically correct at all because it misunderstands Native Americans. But get in with their crowd. Okay, if they join an after-school program and you're allowed, and it's an okay program, do that because that provides you a space, maybe not safe, but a space to get to know that godly person. Okay, friendships are intentional. How many of you guys say you have a really close friend you have absolutely nothing in common with? Really? How many friends? Okay, alright, well that's a little better. If you said two, then we had some kind of misunderstanding. You raised your hand too. How many?
Like
Okay, that's okay. That's right. They happen.
it's very weird.
I have friends I no longer have anything in common with, but that's a little different. Alright, you see the difference between these two strategies? One, they're both very intentional. It's you taking action to try to please God with your friendships. But one is less tact instead of openness. This is more, okay? Check in with them, text them, whatever. And what are you talking about? Instead of shallow conversations, you should be having deeper conversations, okay? What did God teach you last month at the retreat, if they went? What have you been reading lately? You know what I want to be when I grow up? That's not the phrase we use anymore, I know, because we're way too old for it, but you know what I want to major in college? Aviation. Or whatever, I was trying to think of what birds would be. Aviaries. Even if it's weird. Dreams and fears. Why? Because Mary can handle that kind of information biblically. She's not going to, most likely not going to gossip about it like Bob would, right? All right. That's a lot of exposition. So, friend maintenance. Okay, this is friend health. Remember, see how I moved Bob down out of 4, and I moved Mary up out of 2. Now you have a lot of 3-level friends. That's okay, right? Very few people look at their life in this triangle. More adults should. We'd be a lot healthier, godly people if they did. But now we have nobody on 4 and 3 people on 3. But what did I say? It needs to progress, right? It needs to not be immediate. If you drop your friends like hot potatoes, like John implied we should, and they're not saved, they're going to get the idea that God is just as unreliable. Because who do we represent? Right this very minute when we go to school and we talk to them. If they know you're a Christian, even if they don't know you're a Christian, you represent Christ. But we're not perfect like him, so we have to be careful who we spend time with. Christ can spend time with sinners all day long and not be affected a bit, because he's God. But we're affected a lot. Our spirits are. Okay. So, I want you, last exercise, I think we're kind of running out of time. Last exercise, take the person you circled, and I want you to do a little bit of brainstorming, and I want you to write down, once you've thought of it, a tactful way you think that you could lessen your contact with them. Think this might help to know or to remember how you know them or how you contact them usually. If they're like a YouTube channel you subscribe to or something like that. I'm trying to think of technical terms here. Think of a strategic way, a doable way, maybe I should say measurable way you can lessen their effect on you in the next 2 weeks. You should think about your friendships at least every 2 weeks. Actually, you should think about most things at least every 2 weeks. Which is why I'm comfortable saying it. What time is it, Miss Kate?
You have about 10 minutes. It's 7:51 Standard Time.
51. All right, so we're writing, remember this one is for Bob, not Mary. I had you guys circle, well, what should have been Q4s. Hopefully you did the exercise correctly last week back when it was not so something. But remember, and once you, actually I'm going to change. Since we have 8 minutes left, I'm going to have you think of 2 ways that you can strategically, lovingly, tactfully lessen your contact or connection with that person. And guys, this might hurt, okay? If they're, where was Bob? Is he at Q4? If he's in 4, I'm close. I've been trying to get close to my growing friends, okay? That means growing closer to you, not like they've got plans coming out their ears. And this might be painful, especially if your red or circle person is in 5 or 6. I didn't mention that, but it's possible, okay? You could be best friends with the worst influence in the world. And this would still be a healthy experience. Now, I don't think any of you had those, or at least if you do or did, you're not being honest about it. Think of 2 ways. Write them down, and not one word. Well, I'm not going to read it, but I don't want you to write down one word like delete. Don't be stupid. Write down 2 strategies for your circle person of how you can lessen contact. And then we're going to go on to Mary and talk about how to get somebody closer to you, and then we'll be out there. Everybody done? Okay, great. All right. Hopefully that wasn't as painful as it seemed at first. All right, Mary. Now, this is even easier because even though I haven't circled somebody, had you circle, actually, I am going to, who has at least one person on each level? I I said that in the exercise. Okay. Are any of the ones either 1, 2, 3s, Q1s? Shoot. Hang on. Q1s, yeah. Yes? Yes, yes? Okay, great. Now, put a square around their designation or name. I don't really care. I don't remember if I said circle name or designation, but put a square around it so you know it's one of the ones you want to move up. And you can put a little thought into this. I just realized you should, especially if you have more than one, you should put a little thought into it. But not a ton, because I want to finish my 7, 8. So choose one. Did you choose one? Okay. Put a square around them so you know you're not trying to move them. Maybe the designation should give it away, but you remember you're not trying to move them down, you're trying to get closer to them. All right. Now, assuming you've accomplished that, I also want you to write down 2 ways, but these need to be realistic, feasible, doable, within the week. Not that you will do it, but like you can reasonably accomplish them because you're either going to see the person or you're going to talk to them, or you can reach out, or you can invite them to something nice, something like that. Come up with 2 ideas of how you can get to know this person better realistically. Let's say 1 can be within the next week, 2 can be within the next 2 weeks.
Where am I writing this?
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
You guys are taking your papers home tonight, not leaving here again. So you write it on your hand for all I care. I wouldn't suggest it because you wash it and yeah, it'll go away. But the person that's squared on your triangle that you want to get to know better, there should be at least 1. Something you can invite them to, something you can talk about. Ask them about a hobby that you might share in the next 7 days. And then, it can even be in line with that or a totally different idea, something you can accomplish in the next 2 weeks. A strategy. Although, it needs to be tactful. Again, some people don't do the whole, hey, you want to be friends thing. And that's okay. They shouldn't necessarily. I don't do that. I give the people the benefit of the doubt, but if they're a little bit too uppity at first, no thanks. Right? Of course, some of the fun friends are pretty crazy. We next week we're gonna celebrate Cinco de Mayo. We're gonna have our very own fiesta here, so we might need to get a little crazy, and that's okay. But we're all already friends. Did we do it? Everybody get 2 written down? Great. Okay. Now, if you for some reason weren't able to, and you, especially because you have several Q1s on the bottom you want to raise up, that's fine. Pick them tomorrow, later this week. Put thought into it. Because honestly, if you're going to really intentionally grow a relationship, you can really only realistically do that with 1 or 2 people at a time anyway. Especially if you're trying to diminish your contact with someone else intentionally. Alright? And guess what? Once you take these steps, it's kind of like sin. Once you get the ball rolling, eventually, for one, your friendship with the acquaintance becomes a little more natural because you're used to talking to each other. And the other one, once they get the idea, and this might lead to a conversation you have to have about dropping off or whatever, but once they get the idea that you don't want to be as good of a friend, they will look elsewhere. And if they're still the same immature person, that's okay. You want them to look elsewhere. Maybe later on, especially when you guys are older, we'll talk about how to cement friendships. Or better yet, dating friendships.
I was going to say, this exercise was because the friends that I have that are at the top are friendships that have developed years. I mean, like, since high school, years and years and years and years and years.
Right.
So this was a little bit...
This would be very difficult for us.
Yeah.
Right, because
well-established friendships.
I would hope adult Christians do this unconsciously, what is that called? Semi-consciously. Anyway, friendship maintenance is very important. However, sometimes we know someone so long that that's the reason we give them a pass for being a bad friend, for being an ungodly influence. And your parents, and Miss Kate and I, and April, and people like that, we have to be very careful that we don't hang on to bad influences just because they remind us of our childhood, or they're from whatever club I like, or whatever, okay? That matters, and it's going to matter to you someday. Okay, any questions? I should have asked this 10 minutes ago, but we got time for me to answer. Okay, if you guys have any questions, now it's funny, because I've been talking about your friends for a month, and I still only know like a handful of each of them. So, if I seem to have come across partially about your friends, you know I haven't, because I really don't know them. But if you have any questions and you ever want to talk about friends or anything else, just let us know. Let me know. People grab me after church all the time, and I'm okay with it. Or if you just want to talk, you know I text more than most of you do. I probably on Instagram more than most of you do, but I am contactable. So let me know if you need any help. All right, let's pray, and we're going to get downstairs to prayer control. Lord, I thank you very much for tonight. Thank you for the 3 students that came. I pray that we'll have a good rest of the week at school, and that you'll give us insight, Lord, with your Spirit, and a good relationship maintenance, how important that is for our growth. We love you. Thank you for leading us. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, out this door like normal. Make sure to wear your mask, and we will quietly go down the stairs for the adults.